Aloha, and welcome to Live at the Legislature, where each week we talk with members of the Hawaii House Majority discussing bills and issues moving through the House of Representatives. Today we have with us two very qualified representatives, Representative Tina Wildberger, who is from District 11 on Maui, that's Kihei, Wailea, Makena, and Representative Bertrand Kobayashi from District 19, which is Waialae, Kahala, Diamond Head, Kaimuki, and Kapahupu. Welcome to you both, and thank you for being here today.
Good morning.
Thanks for having us.
Representative Wildberger, I'd like to start with you. Today is kind of a historic day with inter-island flights being reinstated. There's no more 14-day quarantine, and I wanted to ask you, is that too soon? Are we doing this too soon, or is it too late, or is it just right? What do you think about this new opening of the flights?
So for my district, with 37% unemployment right now and our inextricably tourism-linked dependent economy, it can't come soon enough. Maui is chomping at the bit to get back to business. I am concerned, however, that since we're only lifting 14-day quarantine for inter-island travelers and are still mixing kama'aina with connecting passengers who have not quarantined yet, every day the numbers that Hawaii Tourism Authority puts out shows 100 plus connecting passengers who they say who are in transit and haven't left the Oahu airport, but they're getting on planes and mixing with kama'aina travelers. Mm-hmm. And that's a hole in the system that we've set up. So I personally am not flying Hawaiian Airlines. I don't feel like it's safe. I'm flying Mokulele to get to and from Oahu so that I'm not mixing with mainland connecting passengers. And I feel like this is something that could be better handled by asking Hawaiian Airlines to open up nonstop flights to mainland travelers who can then come and quarantine at their destination, rather than mixing kama'aina people who have been staying at home, social distancing, and doing all of the things, all of the sacrifices that we have all worked so hard for, to only get on a flight and for a half hour mix with people who might be asymptomatic super spreaders.
So you don't want to take that risk. That's why.
Yeah, we need to open up, but we need to be more targeted. I think that we haven't seen really quite enough leadership in the opening. People have been left to their own devices. Nursery schools that are trying to open or trying to develop their own protocol, restaurants that are opening, everybody's doing something different. Everyone's struggling and working really hard. We need support and we need leadership, and we need very grounded and definite rules about what we're doing as we open up. I'm loath to be hypercritical of people that are trying to do the very best they can to address this situation, because it is unprecedented. We've never been through anything like this. Right. But we really do need strong leadership, and we need to we need to plug those holes where we have exposures that are going to negate the efforts and sacrifices that we have made already.
What's it like on the ground over there? Are restaurants opening? Are tours opening? What's going on over there day to day?
Opening is very, very limited. Most of the business models for our restaurateurs, our tour boat operators, are at such a level that they need the numbers. Kama'aina are never going to be able to offer enough patronage for them to even bother opening. There are tons of businesses that are sitting on PPP money, waiting for a real opening to start, because nobody wants to try to open, fail, have to close, and then reopen again. So there's a restaurant hui here on Maui that's getting together and trying to address their varied interest, from small restaurant operators, from food trucks, all the way to the major players like Peter Merriman and Bev Gannon and Garrett Morero from Maui Brewing. They're all working very closely together. We have a unique challenge on Maui in dealing with our Maui Liquor Commission, which does not operate in the same manner that the Honolulu, Big Island, and Kauai County Liquor Commissions operate. They are obstructionist, anti-business, and have not been cooperative in helping these businesses get to a reopening point.
Well, that can't help at all. But things do need to be coordinated. You know, if we're having people fly over and services aren't available, it's not going to go well. Let's hope they.
Here on Maui, there are a few restaurants are starting to open, and these are the brave operators that are laying the groundwork, that are finding out what's working, what's not working. We have a few dive operations that are starting to operate. I went diving with Maui Diamond last week and was able to go to Molokini without 2,000 or 3,000 other tourists in the crater. It was an amazing experience.
Mhm.
But I also went over to the west side this weekend to dine at Mala, one of Mark Ellman's several restaurants. He's opened one of his outlets, and they were doing a very good job in practicing social distancing. But driving through Front Street in Lahaina was positively post-apocalyptic. There are literally boarded up storefronts with plywood nailed right up against their doors. So we're already starting to see the permanent closure of businesses here, and the handwriting's on the wall. I wrote to the mayor last week and asked him to put $5 million toward helping the restaurant industry so that we don't lose these employers. These employers employ thousands and thousands of people on Maui. While they're all separate companies, nobody has, I think, taken into account how many thousands of employees as a pool this industry is able to keep working. So if we lose our restaurateurs, we also lose that employment segment. And I'm asking the mayor to please put $5 million of his CARES Act funding to support the additional expenses that these restaurateurs are taking on to try to open up under what we're going to call new normal. I'm extremely concerned that this is going to be a protracted event. We're not going to wash our hands of this, no pun intended, in August. Beijing, I learned today, just this morning, is closing schools because of rising COVID cases. So this challenge is going to be with us for, a protracted period, 2 years. And I think it's important that we plan that way and don't pretend like we're not going to be dealing with this in the fall and next year.
Yeah, some people seem to think it's over already and they're not wearing their masks, they're not social distancing, and that could just make it all go on longer.
We'll see what happens with the all of the activity on the mainland with Black Lives Matter protests and resurgence of cases in 2 weeks.
Well, Representative Kobayashi, I don't want to ignore you here. We are coming up onto another session, and we're about to reconvene for a second time the 2020 legislative session that was disrupted by the coronavirus. Unfortunately, many bills that we hope to pass this session will not be passed. But what do you think are some of the priorities that we should get through before we end this session in July?
Well, the biggest priority, of course, is the budget. And in May, when we reconvened, we passed what was essentially a placeholder budget with over $600 million in federal funds placed into the state rainy day fund. That was pure placeholder action. And part of the reason for that was that everybody was guessing about what the revenues are. You can't do a budget unless you know both the revenues and the expenditures. And so at that point in May, we had estimates of $1.5 billion shortage by the governor estimating, and the legislature estimating a $1 billion shortage. The legislature proved to be correct. And so we went with that budget as a temporary estimate of revenues. Now, after the Council of Revenues met last month on the 28th, we have a $2.3 billion deficit. And so it's that big a guesstimate. And even the economists on the State Council of Revenues said that $2.3 billion estimate is only a guess.
Mhm. So we put a lot of money into the rainy day fund. Is that going to be sufficient, or are we going to need to look for more funding to get us through this?
We expect that the money in the rainy day fund will be dispersed to various purposes. And that's the internal debate now occurring. Certainly some of that money might go into further expenditures for UI, unemployment insurance, unemployment claims. But there are a host of services and within state government that need help. In addition, of course, we have a large number of people in the private sector, as Representative Wildberger say, that need help, or else they will face permanent closure. And so that is another tug of war. How much money we keep in terms of state government services, many of which are needed to help people get back to work, and how much money we spend outside.
Well, I'm glad you guys are looking at this, and I know it's going to be a struggle to make it work. Now, we only have a minute left, so I wanted to ask you both about this the police brutality, the police reform, not brutality, police reform bill, House Bill 285. And Rep. Wildberger, what do you think of that? Do we need police reform?
So I really do agree with the idea that we need more holistic policing. The wholesale militarization of our police departments does not serve our communities. And so I was disturbed to see multiple mayors looking to purchase something they call rapid response vehicles with their COVID CARES Act money. And I highly do not agree with that. I oppose the police, the mayor spending any COVID funding on militarization of our police. And I do support disclosure and open transparency in disciplinary issues with police officers.
Very good. Rep. Kobayashi, any comments on the police reform bill?
I think that House Bill 285 will pass in one form or another and open up records, more sunshine about who has been disciplined, what charges, what consequences.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's very interesting to see what's been going on across the country, and I'm so happy that in Hawaii, our protests have been people, and it seemed to bring people together rather than separate them. And the way they're looking at this bill, hopefully will do some positive reform for us. Okay, that's about all the time we have. I want to thank you both for being here today. It's been a pleasure to talk to you and do this multi-island talk. So thank you for both for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Keikoa. Aloha, everybody. Have a great day.
Okay, and you
Wear
would
your
join
mask,
us again next week. What was that?
Everybody wear your mask.
Okay, thank you. We'll wear our masks. Aloha, and thank you for watching
Very good.
The Legislature.
What are you doing? We have to go. I'm gonna be late for work.
It's Tuesday morning. I gotta record live at the legislature on Alelo. Senate and House leadership discussing what's happening at the state capitol.
So just watch it on the news tonight. Come on, let's go.
Hey, this is like getting the news before it's news. If only I could get this remote to work.
There. Can we go now?
No DVR? No problem. Watch Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. on Channel 49.
Aloha, and welcome back to Live at the Legislature for our Hawaii State Senate segment. I'm Communications Director Jesse Bruder Van Dyke, and our guest this week is Senator Sharon Moriwaki, who represents Waikiki, Ala Moana, Kaka'ako, Mokulele, Mo'iliili, and parts of Makiki. And she's also a member of the special committee on COVID-19 that's been meeting throughout this pandemic to oversee the state's response to this crisis. Today is the first day that inter-island travel is going to be allowed again for Hawaii residents. Senator Moriwaki, how do you think this is being implemented so far?
Good morning, Jesse. Thank you. I think this is exciting that we're opening up. This is a soft opening for us. There is concern. We, on the COVID committee, originally closed down all our harbors and our airports through the 14-day quarantine. So this opening up is that there's no quarantine for anyone traveling between the islands. We want to open up our businesses, our hotels, so it's a good thing. We're still concerned that public health be our number one objective as we open. So in the inter-island travel, I know we've heard about people being concerned. There will be required of everyone traveling inter-island that they get the thermal screen, that they fill out a health form, and on that health form it asks you, you have a fever, do you have any signs of any kind of symptoms, and I believe if you do have a fever of 100.4 degrees or over, you won't be allowed to travel. So there is,
and the special committee has been working on this form, right, with the department?
Yeah, we have in terms of the trans-Pacific people coming in from outside the island. Now it's testing it and making sure that this travel form also is used inter-island. And this probably, as we test in the months to come or the weeks to come, how we do that in trans-Pacific travel. So the information that was there originally on the ag forms now is very specific in terms of where are you staying, so that if we find anything, there's contact tracing that Department of Health can follow up so that we can isolate anybody who's infected. And everybody is also supposed to mask up on the planes, but I'm hearing that it's not always the case. But the idea that we should be healthy, we should stay healthy, that is going to be the mantra in terms of travel. So I hope that this piloting and expanding will work, that we don't see the kind of spikes that everybody is afraid will happen.
Mm-hmm. And there are also other businesses that are reopening, such as restaurants and coming up soon bars and things like that. How is that going to affect our flattening the curve? Again,
all of this is new, unprecedented. So we are seeing that the hotels, the restaurants are all looking at how do they disinfect, sanitize, how do they physically distance. So whether it's plastic barriers, keeping the 6-foot distances between tables. The restaurants have already opened up. In fact, last weekend I went out to patronize our Waikiki restaurants. It's all the ones that are open are distanced. Everybody's masked up. They ask you to mask up until you eat, and so it's a real pilot test of how can we do this so that we can stay safe, but also enjoy what we like to do, go out with friends and family. So that I think in the weeks to come, we will find ways in which we can do this better. I know that we met with some of the hoteliers the unions, the concern is, of course, with their workers and how they disinfect, how they have the protective gear. What kinds of things can we do so that we can make sure our employees, our visitors are safe, and what that might look like as we start looking at what we need to have in place.
A lot of people want to know if there's any timeline for ending the mainland quarantine.
We are as well in the special committee. We've been working with the departments, urging the governor to come up with some date specific. The hotels are looking at the difficulty, the amount of planning that has to go in, the retrofitting in some cases, and the bringing back of workers. So a time specific, a date specific is important to ramp up to that date. The governor has said he will make some kind of announcement this Wednesday. I know he's been working with some of these groups. The travel bubble is a soft opening. The group, Paul Yonomini and his HEC put together the airlines, the businesses in Japan that are willing, able to work together with Hawaii. And there's some discussion with the Attorney General, with the governor, to see how might that happen. And hopefully that could be an experiment, again, another pilot of how you work together in a travel corridor between two destinations that have low incidence and can work through what the protocols will be instead of the 14-day quarantine, that nobody will come to Hawaii with a 14-day quarantine. How might we listen that with, say, pre-testing, testing when they arrive, contact tracing mechanism, and screenings, and all of that needs to be in place before that happens. So in terms of answering, along with answering your question, we don't know, but we're hoping that it could be sometime July, August, so that hotels can get back in business again.
Well, if we could do a bubble with Japan, I'm sure that would help the travel industry a lot, bridge the gap for this time. And I know there's discussions about other possible Asian countries being included in that travel bubble. So we'll see how that goes. While Waikiki has been relatively empty, the mayor did an experiment this weekend with the Open Street Sundays. And I know a lot of your constituents in the Waikiki area had some concerns about the number of people in Waikiki during that event. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened?
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the newspaper yesterday with the total total excitement and energy in Waikiki because of Open Sunday. The problem with that, as you can see in that photo and videos that were taken, is that it was like bikes all over. The cyclists were moving in and out of people walking. There were people with their carriages and boogie boards or whatever and they were the segways. They were all over the place, and they were closely interlacing like the Black Matters movement. Many with no masks on. So the fear is that we will have spikes when we have these kinds of congregate events. When we're saying, restaurants, everybody has been so good in these past months, and I want to mahalo everybody for that we have kept the 10-person limit. We have masked up. We have physically distanced ourselves. And now in one event, you can have many people close together, no masks, and one person can infect everyone. So that is a real fear. If we can look at ways in which, if these kinds of event happens, there's 3 more Sundays in Waikiki, I would hope the mayor would look at this, put up signs, remind people of masking up if they're close together, physically distancing themselves, being a lot more mindful and aware of people around them. I know many of my residents were concerned that they had no input in how this would happen. I hope after this first one that while it's nice to have people together, that they be mindful of other people. The whole idea of this is getting together, but also being sure that we are safe, that we keep ourselves healthy, and we consider other people around us. And so that is my concern about these kinds of events, that they totally go against what we've been doing for many months. And it would be a shame to have a spike because of these openings. I would like to say that in our district, the mostly hit because of having restaurants, bars, hotels, that we have a number of unemployed. And I've been working with all of them who call in or email me, because each person has their trauma in terms of not having work. I've been also looking at the budget and how we might address those who are still unemployed and who are disqualified and don't get unemployment benefits, that we help them find employment as well as retraining. So as we come together in the next week with the legislature coming back, looking at that budget that we set aside for just these purposes, seeing what has happened in the weeks since we last met, how we can better use those funds to help those really in need, whether it be the unemployed, the businesses that need help opening, and our kupuna who may not get the services that they had originally pre-COVID. So I'm hoping that everybody takes care of each other, lets us know what their needs are as we go back into session. We will be looking very closely at how we use our very minimal funds, because our budget is really like $2 billion, in the red. How do we use the funds the best way we can to help our resident?
So we just have a couple minutes left. As you mentioned, the legislature's coming back into session on Monday, and you're a member of the Ways and Means Committee in addition to the Housing and Technology Committees. And there is some federal funds, which I know you and your colleagues on the Ways and Means Committee have been considering what to do, what can help the most number of people. We just have about a minute left, but can you give us a little preview of what's coming up this week?
Yes, we are grappling with the budget. That is really important, that federal relief funds that we set aside, the $635 million. We are looking, as I said earlier, how can we best put those funds to help our people in the next 6 months and be able to help those, especially those unemployed and needing help, and for the small businesses that need help as well. We're hoping that we can push those funds into areas where they're needed immediately. So I hope that everybody really does care for each other in this time of very difficult time for all of us. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Senator Moriwaki. We appreciate that. And thank you all for tuning in. Thanks so much to the crew at Olelo for keeping us on the air during this pandemic with this new technology. And thank you all. We'll see you next week. Aloha.
Aloha.